Welcome to the podcast, everybody. Let's begin. So a number of people I actually saw in our Patreon asked about Andrew Tate, if we would speak about him. I don't know. Have you seen him at all?
No. So I'm going to add a lot.
You're going to add a tremendous amount. So he's on...
Strong name.
I've only watched a handful of TikToks, which I don't recall, but what I did watch the other day was him speaking to a Twitch streamer named XQC about a number of things. And he's gotten big on a lot of these video platforms. His strategy, I don't know how well known it is that he sells access to like his course, which is how to make money. And then one of the ways that he tells you that you should make money is by affiliating for this course. So then you go out and he doesn't copyright claim any videos that you make about him. So I don't know what the percentage is, but a tremendous amount of the views with him in them, like he's on a podcast, are re-syndicated, re-clipped by other people on other channels. They can collect any ad revenue that comes of it, and his benefit is to his brand.
Yeah, it's like an MLM.
It's super MLM. It's super duper MLM. And yeah, so that has enabled him to go from small to big. Also, he's a successful, I think, Thai boxer, like kickboxing, as well as he made money from doing cams over in Europe. Like he would have a cam girl house and not even just a house.
I thought you meant he would do cams. Like he would just jerk off on camera. I was like, oh, interesting. He's a fighter, an entrepreneur, and he has an OnlyFans. Interesting.
And he's got some, like red pill style stuff that he talks about. And he's also got a very interesting background, like having lived abroad, and he's half something and half something else. I don't even know. But anyway, so I watched this one thing people asked me, a couple of the points that I thought were most
What is the question? They wanted you to watch this particular interview?
What do I think of him? He's exploded onto the scene, has done really well. So first off, the MLM nature of how he's promoted himself is very smart, which is like make a bunch of speaking into the camera content. I think what he also does is he is comfortable making statements. For instance, this is what they discuss in this thing is women shouldn't be able to drive. They're bad drivers. He's comfortable making statements like that when what he means, if interrogated, is most of the issues that I've seen with accidents in my life have been caused by women, is actually what he's saying. And I'm not interested in checking out insurance numbers or car crash statistics. It's just my personal experience. And also this is what men say to each other when they're hanging out. They complain about women and any number of things.
But does he mean it in the sense that if he were in charge of legislating for his country, he would ban women from driving, or he just speaks facetiously because he knows that the hot take will get attention?
I don't know, but I think it probably goes hot take by hot take, with whether he like believes it a lot. But I think,
because sometimes people will say things that they don't mean just because they know it's spicy.
Yeah, it's unclear. And if I were to speak to him, which I'm not anti or pro, that would be a question. It's like, do you mean this in the sense that these are words that you'd like to see enacted with force behind them? Women should not be able to drive in the same way that when somebody says we should defund the police, they mean like take the budget from the police away from the police department.
That's not true, actually. Different people
mean different things.
Seriously, different people.
Fair enough.
You could take 10 people who have a sign that says defund the police.
Yeah.
And one of them goes, I obviously don't mean to remove all funding from the police. I mean to add body cams, but fund them less in other ways. And then someone else goes, yeah, I think we should just give zero budget to the police and have lawless civilization. And it's like, well, okay, you guys have the same catchphrase, but you mean very different things.
I chose a poor example. I realized that as soon as it came out of my mouth. So I don't know exactly what he believes behind it, but there's a combination.
He's not clear though. He's never been like, I'm just joking for attention.
I don't know what he's ever said. I watched 1 2-hour discussion with him. But what he did talk about in this, he says, I do not do internet talk. In the internet, one of the things, you and I speak very differently here than we do as soon as this ends outside. And the understanding is that you have to communicate to an audience. When I'm speaking to you, there's a shared set of understandings and values that I can say heinous stuff and you understand that I don't mean it.
Yeah, I swear way more off the podcast.
Well, not even just heinous. I can make dark jokes or whatever that you understand don't reflect deep values or beliefs of mine. That if I were to make to people that have never met me before, would reasonably not know what I meant. It could be viewed as this confident thing, but it's also just kind of shirking a responsibility that I'm sure he adopts every day in his life, where when he speaks to a grandma or a 4-year-old or his buddy, he does adjust for his audience.
Maybe he's just fucking crazy when he's talking to a 4-year-old or his grandma.
I'm sure he's not. I'm sure everybody adjusts for their audience. He speaks multiple languages. When he speaks for one audience, he does not speak in a language they don't understand. So it does seem a bit like an arbitrary line. And I get it. At some point, you have to go, I cannot possibly cater to every special interest group as I speak here, or else it slows my communication down so much.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit of bravado in that I won't adjust my speech. It's like, well, you're speaking English. You could be speaking a different language. Like there is some attempt that you make to be understood, but he draws a line at, I won't speak to you in a way that I wouldn't speak comfortably to a group of friends.
I don't know what he says, so I won't talk about Andrew Tate, but I will say I could imagine someone where what the penalty is for that is simply that they increase their risk of being quote unquote canceled, and they're willing to burden that. And that seems fine to me. If you're like, oh, I'm going to say, like Andrew Schultz, I'm going to say dark jokes. I'm not going to let my humor, my comedy change because I see other comedians get canceled. And the result of that is Schultz just takes more heat from people. You know what I mean? But he's not hurting people because he's not educational. So I feel like that's fine and great if you want to take the risk on yourself. I don't know what he's saying or teaching, but
this was the first part of their conversation is you said women should not be able to drive. And then, they discuss, well, what I was saying is that every time I've seen an accident or if there's a woman driver, I panic more than if it's a man driver because that's my experience and you can't tell me that my experience isn't true. And when the guy brings up insurance rates or studies, he says, you believe internet studies more than your own eyes, which is, I was just, at some point, like,
you should to some extent.
I don't know the U.S. exists by my own eyes. I've never been to every state. I have to trust that Idaho is out there because it might not be. I've not confirmed it.
Of course, I also don't, to be clear, I don't know that heroin is addicting. I don't know that smoking causes cancer. I don't know a lot of that. I don't know that drunk driving impairs your ability to drive well. I've never personally experienced heroin, lung cancer, or drunk driving. So I have to take some experiences at their spoken value, or else I have to try everything before I can say if something is true or not.
Well, this was the first point that perhaps just wasn't well explored, is that I've been on this podcast talking about how I don't believe everything that I've seen on the internet, but I could make it explicit. There's some sort of algorithm I have in my head, which is like, what's the incentive structure here to lie? How much money stands to be made by that person with that incentive structure? Is this a political issue that people are trying to muddy the waters? Versus, do I believe that if I Google insurance rates across men and women, that it's probably going to be reflective of the average rates that people in America pay? And if I Google statistics of car accidents caused by men or women, that it's going to roughly reflect the actual truth of it. For those two, I tend to believe that I can trust a cursory search on Google. And
well, yeah, I mean, he and I can just disagree here. That's how I handled COVID. I looked up deaths by age and fitness levels and all that. And I placed myself on a chart of data that I didn't go out and get myself. So that's how I decided that COVID was probably relatively low risk for me. I guess his metric or his system would be to assume you know nothing about it until you see people get COVID around you. And then if they have bad cases, be very scared of COVID.
Well, he briefly mentioned COVID, which was, we all stayed inside and we didn't even see any sick people, which might just be, again, shorthand speaking. I don't want to take him in bad faith, but the sick people were inside or in the hospital. Of course, you didn't see them outside.
Well, but the flip would be if I happen to have 3 friends that got it bad, I should be terrified of it. Is what this system for making decisions would say.
Yes.
And if I see you go to the hospital for 3 weeks, I should ignore all the data and go, COVID is extremely dangerous. If I get it, I'm likely to go to the hospital for 3 weeks because that's my personal with my eyes take on the one case of COVID I saw.
And of course, I think he would agree that one has to blend their firsthand experience with hearsay from the news, internet, other people in order to form a view of the world that is effective.
Yeah, and all sources of information aren't created equal.
So in any event, that might be something that would not be a big issue. But the one thing that I thought was interesting that we probably would disagree on was he had made a statement that they started to unpack, which is if a girl that I was seeing, my girl, did OnlyFans, I would take 100% of the proceeds because I believe that I'm entitled. This is supposed to be a private relationship by its nature, And if she wants to share that, that's her prerogative, but I'm going to benefit from it because this is supposed to be benefiting me, so I'll take 100% of the income. He then discussed, he's like, well, this would basically never happen. So I'm giving you a hypothetical situation that never would occur. But if it did occur, this is what would happen. And one of the reasons he said was that women need to respect the men that they're with. And if I didn't take the money, she would not respect me. And as I watched that, I thought of prior relationships I had where I had that worldview, which was, I might not do this thing, but if I don't, I will lose her respect. Therefore, I have to manage her perception of how much she respects me and be whatever, alpha, take the OnlyFans money, make these aggrandizing statements, puff my chest out in ways that I... Go crazy, boy. Puff my chest out in ways that I probably wouldn't otherwise in order to maintain this relationship. And I actually, in that moment, felt bad for him because I don't know if you felt this. Did we ever talk about this when I was sort of feeling this way with a previous girlfriend?
No? I don't know.
We might not have. Yeah, just this experience of there's truth in that women are with men that they respect, and there is truth in if a woman doesn't respect you at all, that she probably won't want to be with you for a very long time. But this idea of constantly having to maintain respect by like planning and by being alpha or whatever, however you want to describe it, it's a bummer of a way to live.
Well, this is and again, he's even saying that he would not date. His actual standard is I wouldn't date someone who had OnlyFans. So it's weird that he wouldn't just say, if I found out that my girl, quote unquote, had an OnlyFans, I'd break up with her, which is his actual feeling.
I think it's to have the controversial hot take is why it's performed that way. Yes. But
which is funny. Like it sounds like he wouldn't take all the money. He would just say, I don't want to be with you because you're selling your naked photos and I don't want to be with someone who does that. So find someone who doesn't mind it. And then the person who doesn't mind it won't take the money because they don't mind it. So in their mind, it doesn't cost them respect.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it. The hot take sounds like a hypothetical that's just something said for funsies.
Yes. Which is if you were attacked by 1,000 first graders with knives, I'd kill every one of them. It's like, yeah, but that's not going to happen in the first place. So
I like those hypotheticals.
I enjoy them. They're fun.
Yeah, I do. It is an interesting, stepping back from that specific, it is interesting to hear the idea of I would take 100% because, not because I think that's fair or not fair or whatever, but because of the respect, because I need a certain level of respect for her to like me. It's something I'm noticing. I've been tuning in more to different relationships. People will put the relationship above their own happiness, which might make sense when you're 3 kids in and you've been married for 15 years and you've had an unhappy month. But I see it happening very early in relationships that people will go, I'm going to put this relationship lasting over just me being happy. And that's kind of what he's describing is I would do this thing that not that I want to, but that I would do so that she would keep liking me so that we could keep dating. It's like, why not just break up so that you can just go be with someone where you're not constantly managing respect levels. Just find someone that's easier to be happy with.
Yeah. And I think he would say that he's happy.
No, that's not for him. That's not an Andrew Tate thing. I've not watched a single thing. That's something I just see in a lot of people.
Yes. I felt that at various times and would have identified as being happy while I was having to, I didn't even realize the amount of behaviors that were to make sure that I stayed at the top of her list in this safe way and that this relationship.
I think it's because I think there's like a lack that people feel that they get a comfort from a partner and they stop tracking their minute to minute. Like, am I enjoying being with this person? Or is this person causing stress or whatever? I
think a lot of people, and I'm learning that myself included, have learned to cut. This is actually one of the things I want to talk about. So I was watching I want to come back to Andrew Tate, but the other topic that I have was I was watching a Teal Swan video, who I enjoy watching. And
even though she's a cult leader?
Even though she's a cult leader. She was talking about shame, and her statement is, shame is not an emotion. Shame is a biological reaction like fight or flight And it is a response to recognizing that a part of ourselves is going to distance us from people that are important to our survival. So it happens primarily in childhood. And it's, can be like you're running around naked and mom and dad said, go inside. So you develop shame over your body, or you hit your sister and they say, you're a bad boy, don't be like that. And you develop shame with regards to your frustration and anger and capacity for that. And that it's this biological reaction like fight or flight that is not an emotion. Emotions can rise around it. And its primary purpose is to first split off the parts of yourself that are not well received by people around you in order to make you fit in. So tying that back in, the point that you made is that I think shame, which is experienced by all of us early in the socialization process, cuts us off from the part of ourselves that is not happy in the relationship. Like we're so conditioned to be like, yeah, whatever, like, oh, I must be bad when, if I'm frustrated by this person or if I don't want to be with them or, if
this person is unhappy, I failed in my half of the relationship.
Yes.
Instead of this person's unhappy, we're fighting, I'm unhappy. We should just decouple.
Yes, which is what children cannot do. They're like,
right.
I get angry sometimes, lady. You know what I mean? Sometimes I got to slap my sister in the head. No, like that is, you cannot decouple.
You can't decouple from your parents.
And so that learned behavior, especially as it tends to, I think, stick to certain experiences and certain emotions. So like you're less likely to feel shame if you weren't shamed about your body. And then somebody later in your life calls you fat. You're like, it just doesn't hit me in the same way that if I needed to fit in for whatever other reason, that if I needed to be proper or have good manners or something like that, that I'm going to be highly sensitive to. But also I'm not going to detect when somebody is being like unkind about my manners because I'm so used to being like, you're right.
It's probably not just parents, because I think for myself, I wasn't shamed by my parents for being nerdy, but at an early age in my school, I was. There was like violent consequences for being nerdy, and I think that can be just as impactful depending on how old you are.
Well, I think it's basically anything before the age of 6 or 7 is your brain just ain't there. It's just you like have this need to fit in and this inability to.
I'd up that age, but maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, of course. It happens for the rest of your life. You can have an experience at age 25 or 35 that sticks with you. But I think that it's almost baked in, guaranteed before 7 because you do not have the mental capacity to be like, that's their problem. It just doesn't exist. So anyway, back to Andrew Tate. One of the other things that I thought was interesting that was implicit, he's like, in his relationships, traditional tradcon is like, I'm the man, I am 35, I am successful, high achievement, I take responsibility over this relationship, and therefore I have a level of authority, and I say what does and doesn't happen. She is, and even in the examples he was given, like maybe she's 18, she's like young, probably beautiful, naive, and wants to partner with me. And this is the way that it has happened through all of human history. It's in our firmware, and this is how it's supposed to be. And I think that while I grant that that's what I think a lot of relationships have been throughout history and is reflective of evolutionary structures in our psyche, I am trying to get past that belief in myself, because for a long time, I think all of myself and my friends had this habit of like being the mentor in the relationship, like being the one that was farther ahead and
older, more successful financially, done more personal development work.
And it was deeply satisfying to me and the other people to like teach, and we like all really were attracted at, well, not all, but I've like liked to like work with women and teach them and like take them to my personal development places and try to get them to be entrepreneurs. It was like a very familiar, comfortable role for me. And when I heard him speak, I was like, man, like, again, seeing into myself is you can't imagine like having a partner, like someone who you did not have to take responsibility for, because we do not live with saber-toothed tigers chasing us anymore. Like all this horrible danger of the world does not actually match my experience. It's living in Malibu. It ain't that threatening.
Well, can't imagine or just doesn't prefer? Because I think if you, I don't know how old Andrew Tate is, but if you said, okay, you have the option, beautiful 19-year-old, she follows your lead, gives you all the responsibility. If things go wrong, it's your fault. If things go well, you get the credit. Doesn't teach you anything. You're the mentor. Or someone 1 year younger than you, just as financially successful, is right as often as you are. You're wrong as often as she is when you guys have disagreements. he might say, I can't imagine that. I don't want that. I prefer.
I think you're right. And so would I have up until recently when I realized it's like, this
Sure. I'm just saying, I don't know
yeah.
that it's can't imagine. I think it's imagines and goes, no, I don't want that. That I have to apologize for being wrong some of the time. That I don't have all of the authority or power. We're more of a democratic partnership of two. Yeah, that might be incredibly unappealing to him. Not necessarily impossible to imagine.
Yes, that's a fair point. And yeah, again, saw elements of myself in that, and that's how I felt, which was like, I know that I don't think I'm the most brilliant person on the planet or the most successful, or I know everything about life, but I'm just not drawn to women that would be reciprocals, one over mirrors in some way of that.
Well, truth is, I have no idea. I mean, in terms of judging from your own experience or looking at the data, I am not old enough to have seen hundreds of relationships last 70 years. I don't know if your goal is a marriage that lasts a lifetime or a partnership that lasts a lifetime, and you're saying, oh, I'm going to meet this person between 25 and 35, and we're going to go until I die at 100. What relationship makes it 65 years? Is it the one where you are a partnership? They look exactly like your best friend. All your friends like them. You're basically just different genders, but largely like similar intellect, similar interests. Is it the one where you follow a more traditional relationship like the ones that historically existed? Like I actually don't know what lasts. And I don't know that what lasts is even what makes people happiest. So I actually don't feel like I have the authority to say whether that's a bad idea or a good idea or what one should look for if their goal is a life of happy partnership.
Yeah, and I don't know that he's even telling other men what to do either. He's sort of describing himself, and for that, do what you like.
Yeah. I just can't say if he's right or wrong or you're right or wrong. All the relationships I look at have lasted somewhere between 0 and on the high end 13 years.
And it is
so they're about 60 years shy of lifelong.
Well, this is this is when we talk about relationships, lasting literally didn't occur to me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying lasting is happy either, but I also can't tell you which one is happier. I haven't seen, it's not something I see thousands of data points for.
Yeah. What I've recently come to, and again, might change or grow, is that happier is closer to it. Lasting is not. It's life is huge and big, and I don't really, as much as I like to pretend, like I don't know that much about it. Like I have a fuck ton of growth to do, and I want help, and I want the people in my life to not be children. He even goes on to describe some of the relationships of like, he's like, some men need a mommy, like they need a girl, tell them do this, do this, do this. He doesn't say it, but what is the flip of that is I'm these girls' daddy. You know what I mean? I like take care of them, protect them, tell them what life is about. And I increasingly don't want to be a daddy or have a mommy. I want a partner that is on the cutting edge of how to live and grow with me. And I don't expect to be equal to them. Like maybe I make more money or maybe they're more spiritually in tune. I don't know.
I was going to say, I also don't know if once you are talking about having kids, I don't think a partner shares your same strengths necessarily.
No.
So, because I've heard some people, and we've talked about, should your life partner who's a woman look like your best friends in terms of same interests in personal development, can sit on the couch and yuck around with them all, like wants to play D&D or watch UFC or whatever. But I think what you don't want is two people that are, for instance, in your case, making great money as an entrepreneur, incredibly smart, very cerebral. And then there's a kid, and it's like, who's going to nurture the kid when it's crying,
sick,
get up at 4 a.m. when it's inconvenient, like do all the stuff that you're not going to want to do. If you're with a mirror of yourself, I don't know that that's the best partnership. So I think looking for a partner and not a daughter makes a ton of sense. But then it's like, what makes a partner? A partner might be someone that doesn't match you in success or IQ, but incredibly outpaces you on EQ and patience or whatever. So yeah, I think
I agree, by the way. I'm not saying this for everybody, but I definitely sign up to that. Somebody with my IQ is great and fun. Somebody who with a YouTube channel can help me with my YouTube channel, but it's like, I'll get there. Like I have friends.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Like cloning yourself, but switching the gender. I don't know that makes the best partner for raising a family. And so then what makes a good partner might be hard to quantify or at least not look like what people are imagining when they hear you say, I want someone who's the same success level and not someone I take care of. It's like, well, maybe you do take care of them completely financially. And maybe they are way more in tune with the kids' emotional needs, or much more willing to inconvenience themselves and be patient, or whatever it might be that you are your weaknesses when it comes to parenting.
Yeah. This is not a prescription, but where I've, I think, landed as regards that is like, I want both of us to have like the gen ed classes, which is like baseline level of you're responsible for your emotions, you're responsible for your experience in this life. You can pay for your finances. Like you can. Now we might elect down the line to not have that be the case, but like you are a fully functioning, independent human being, period. And then above that is the specialization. And like, maybe I learn how to make a lot more money, or you do. Probably not. In my case, that's not my match. But yeah, that my match would have things that I'm not as good at, which is but intuition about things that are occurring in their body, or like that capacity to take care of a kid, and even when it's vomiting and crapping all over you, and not just to do it, but to show me how to feel the way that they feel in that situation. Because I don't just want the task to get done. I do feel like there's an entire like element of life and femininity that I just, I do want to integrate, but I haven't. Like when I see sick people or creatures, I move back. I am not drawn towards. I feel, I lack that in me. And I don't think that that's something I want to die with. I think that's something that I need to learn and grow. And that's what I would like, a partner to teach me through their behavior. But yeah, Andrew Tate doesn't need to have or want that, but I saw like previous beliefs in mine coming out of his mouth in more aggressive ways. So I thought it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, funny enough, it's possible that the guy who claims he has no internet persona does have an internet persona, which is just him dialed up. Like it's possible that we would hang out with him and have this conversation and be like, yeah, totally agree. Seems fine to me. I don't think it's for me, but he might be very unaggressive in the sense of like, yeah, do you go get your thing and I'll do my thing. And it's all good. Like he might be totally reasonable.
I suspected we could shoot the shit and get along.
Yeah.
As I watched, when I said aggressive,
I don't know anything about the guy, but I'm just saying it could be that we all subconsciously as creators are at least aware of what's working for us. And he might have just seen some stuff work for him and go, oh, it's easy enough. I can play an 11 out of 10 caricature of myself. Actually, I've never seen him, but I did see one random video. People were talking about him, and it was just a mashup of him like saying stuff and then breaking, like Bill Hader in a SNL skit where he's trying not to laugh at what he's saying. I just remember that while we were talking. So it's possible it's his shtick and he's just having fun and actually watches his own videos and laughs at himself for being an 11 out of 10 for how he actually
totally.
Is. But I don't know. I don't know the guy at all. Maybe I'm dead wrong.
He was cool, calm, and collected in this conversation. Would have, unlike some, we've had conversations where I feel like you talk, they respond to something else. You talk, and it was a genuine dialogue with him, and he was listening. I was like, oh, that's refreshing. You don't always get that with these big personality types in this space. So
I also don't know how he grew up. I mean, it's possible he grew up in a poor neighborhood where violence was all around.
He was a drug dealer.
Yeah, and so he's like, oh, I have to protect. My role of the man is protect. It's like, you know what? This might actually be totally accurate for you and your experience, and you're dead right. And if you didn't do this, you'd be a failure in your neighborhood.
Yes. Now, my only question for him, I believe that he has the personality that he has for good reason, and the beliefs that he has for good reason. My only question would be is if he missed an opportunity to update based on his current environment.
Sure. I'm just saying in terms of ideal personality for survival, or ideal amount of enlightenment for survival, or what you should look for in a partner, those are going to vary income level to income level, country to country, depending on your safety and your crime and all that. So yeah, definitely how to live in the suburbs of California is not going to match how to live in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro.
And if society falls apart and I somehow survive the first couple of weeks, I will not want the partner that is just like, emotionally in tune in the same way. I'm going to probably have a much more traditional relationship where I have to like learn how to shoot and kill and defend, and the other person like takes care of the inside of the home.
Or you're going to wish you'd gotten with G.I. Jane.
Yeah.
You go, listen, baby, I'll stay home. I can garden.
I've learned how to do this.
I can garden.
I'm useful in that
Here's
world.
A gun. You
or
take
useless. Care of this. I'm totally useless in that world.
Protect me, babe.
If there's no internet, I can't help. What do you got?
I have a couple of business things or things I've just been thinking about for entrepreneurship. Similar to how we talked about. Andrew Tate came up with a new way to get big, which was this MLM style YouTube viewership. Schultz did it by going against the grain and being more controversial when people were shifting to be less controversial. So there's these basketball videos. I don't know if you've seen these. It'll be something like air balls, but they get increasingly more awful. There are so many basketball channels on YouTube. You would look at it and you go, there's no blue ocean here. No consultant would say to do this. But they were all doing similar formats. It's interesting. Someone came up with the idea of just doing air balls, but they get increasingly more awful. Dunks, but they get increasingly more disrespectful. Shots, but they get increasingly more clutch. Millions of views on every video. And it's fascinating to me to think of people, like we've had people come in with questions. How do I be a trainer? How do I be a yogi? I really like fitness, these crowded niches. And it's like, it's tough, man. What are you going to do to differentiate yourself? So it's kind of cool to see that this channel, all they did to differentiate themselves was figure out a new way to put content together that people find really interesting. Because you could already find dunk compilations, but it was just LeBron's best dunks. And all they did was just say, hey, this is going to become increasingly more awful, awesome, whatever. And now they're blowing up. I thought that was a cool lesson for people who might feel discouraged that their passion is something other people are also trying to do.
The genesis of that, I'm sure it goes back further, but for years there's been all of Lord of the Rings, but every time Frodo puts on the ring, it goes faster or something like that. It winds up, you know what I mean? It winds, they double time until the end. It's just, and some of these, they were the B movie, but every time someone says B, it goes faster, and it takes like 3 minutes to get through the movie, and it's got millions of views.
Yeah, some guy
for
blew
just
up.
This meme video.
Some guy blew up, and it's just listening to Eminem until I feel inspired. And it's 9 seconds.
Yeah,
and he gets millions of views.
Yes. So there's that what's interesting, and this is what I try to teach people when I do YouTube, is people always look inside their niche in order to figure out what's working. And that's good. That'll tell you what is working. It'll put you down the right track, but it will not break you through. A really good way is to look in other niches in YouTube, find the structure. So it's X, but every time Y. You know what I mean? So this, but every time they miss, they gets worse or something like that. I watched League of Legends. Yeah. Like every time I one shot, playing until, this is the other one, playing until I blank. And it's until I miss a one shot. So it's just 4 minutes of one shots. But when it's written that way, for whatever reason, now in the current meta, it does well. So you could take that charisma, but every time Craig Ferguson. Now the problem with that is that you're not building authority as a channel. They tend to just be cuts and compilations, and you collect the views, but you could make your ad rev.
Yeah, you could make $50,000 a month on AdSense that way.
Yes.
You could just be someone who cuts up videos and makes $600,000 a year.
Yes, but you're constantly going to have to be on the cutting edge of the meta because this is going to get old, and then it's going to have to be something else. Not that it's right or wrong or bad. It's a totally fine way to break in.
And I think how most people who write into us, at least, they want to be the instructor, the guru, the face. So you would have to innovate on this in a way where you do, how do I do this, but also build credibility and authority for myself. So what we've done with Charisma on Command, it's not just show people being charismatic. It's having the commentary that leads people to understand that we have things we can teach them as individuals that goes beyond if they were just to watch celebrity mashups. These basketball clips don't do that. So you would need, but I just thought it's just cool to see someone succeed in a crowded space, because it's so often people give themselves that excuse for why they don't try. It's like, I can't teach people fitness. There's already people doing that. But then Knees Over Toes guy comes in and is absolutely smashing it on Joe Rogan because he figures out a new way to quote unquote teach fitness.
There's these, Knees Over Toes, I feel like it's a slightly different category, but I understand what you're saying. He was, speaking to a need that wasn't being voiced, which is kind of like, my knees and back hurt. And everybody's like looking up low back pain or whatever.
But he also, his biggest thing is, I'll teach you how to run faster and dunk, I think.
It's dunk.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He goes, I had no vertical. He was a college basketball player, no vertical, terribly unathletic, and then had 2 knee surgeries. And post knee surgery, he can now dunk. His vertical has grown post knee surgery, which is just insane. But I think his audience is partially people who have knee pain and partially totally healthy people who just see potentially the magic bullet that they have always been hunting for to be more athletic.
Yeah. So I've started to get hip to this. Fitness is, unfortunately, there's these tried and true things that work. And I mean, it's like drink a decent amount of water, eat greens, get your macros. They're very boring, unsexy things.
Yeah. But also often unknown. Like I was talking to a guy at the gym who's trying really hard to bulk up, but didn't know what German volume training was and hadn't Googled Arnold Schwarzenegger workout routine. Just like, you don't need to be on the cutting edge. You just have to find the stuff that has worked for millions of people over the last decades.
Well, at some point, I think it's because GVT doesn't have the same like marketing incentive behind it. Like,
there's no money behind do a bunch of reps
to invent the new primal fitness, or this is the way our ancestors ran, and you connect a narrative to it.
People love the
imply a silver bullet.
Stuff.
Well, that's what so you got primal, you got paleo, you got this, you got that, and it's all interesting and good, but it is also it's keto, which like surged and is now just not as interesting to people.
Well, and it's fascinating. Not that there's anything wrong with doing keto the right way. You used to eat Quest bars all the time because no sugar. They just have a bunch of fake sugar. All the macros look right. It was pitched as a fitness thing. And then you hired a trainer and he said, stop eating Quest bars. And you immediately got shredded because even though you're eating these things that had no sugar and no fat in them, they were doing something that made your body worse.
Correct.
And that's what a lot of people who are doing keto aren't going, oh, I'm going to do keto, which means I'm going to eat whole organic fruits, vegetables, and lean meats. They go, I'm going to do keto, and then they eat a bunch of stevia and
no fruits in keto, right? You can't have that sugar.
Sure, vegetables and lean meats, But they're doing it with sugar alcohols that, who knows if those are good for you or not.
But the broad thing that I see is that there are so many people out there whose job is to convince you that this new fitness regimen, scheme, system, product, etc., the Bowflex, the Ab Cruncher, the fucking P90X is going to be the difference. And it's the same shit that has always worked. There's very few like new things that wind up working. We'll see where cold plunges and saunas wind up in 5 to 10 years. I'm curious. I enjoy the sauna, but I wouldn't be shocked if all of it's the greatest thing ever turns out not to be as true as it's been promised.
Potentially. I would also say cold plunge is more trying to mirror something that people were doing historically, right? What am I actually experiencing? Like, don't let the pop science narrative outweigh your own experience. So if you cold plunge and you feel good and you sauna and you feel good, I think that's good. I do both. I like both. But if I did ice baths and woke up more in pain and started to find myself more injury prone and stuff like that, it would be a mistake to ignore my own body just because of what a blog said.
You ate the food pyramid and we're like, I feel bloated and I'm not, Like, and you're like, you know what? Maybe not 11 servings of grains a day would be good for me.
Is 12 slices of bread too many in one day? Or maybe it's not enough.
I've realized lately that pretzels are good. Oh my God, it's so easy to get a little belly fat as you get to be my age and just eat pretzels. Yeah. But anyways, what were you had something else that you were gonna...
Oh, well, you just got a text from our D&D editor. Another thing about business, I had just forgot. We started our business so long ago, and we started it like
10 years.
So we were starting D&D. I realized I reminded myself of why most entrepreneurs fail. Starting a business is such an exercise in having no idea how much work is involved in that business. And I think part of the reason the 4-Hour Workweek was so good and successful and inspirational is because it didn't fully highlight how much shitty work. And it was like, oh, all you have to do is go to GoDaddy, and then all you do is make a Shopify cart, and then all you do is sit on the beach and rake in money. And it's so, and I'm glad that he lied to me in that regard. I actually genuinely am, because it's why I pursued entrepreneurship. But I had forgotten all the road bumps we hit 10 years ago, 9 years ago, whatever. And with D&D, there's been so much work I wasn't anticipating, and you've been doing the bulk of it, but I've just seen it from the outside. And I go, oh yeah, this is why entrepreneurship by what most people fail, because once you actually start, you run into a bunch of things that you weren't expecting. Like, I'm going to have to go get clients. That's going to be hard. But you didn't anticipate the 15 hurdles that come before that.
Yeah.
So
100%. This was same feeling that you have about 4 Hour Work Week, which is like, I appreciate you lying to me.
No, thank God. Please. I would.
Because if you'd told me, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't, not fun. I might have started on a different business later, but that's why I've had to do I've been happy to do D&D. For me personally, and when I talk to people, I was like, I've seen broadly two camps of people that succeed in entrepreneurship. There's the guys that will do what it takes to make money, and they will find the best market, and when they see that there's a fat dollar sign there and the product market fit, they will move forward and succeed.
And do work that's not fun, that they don't like, in a niche they don't care about, and do great.
And God bless them. You either are that guy or you're not, and I'm not that guy. I do not have what it takes to work at a thing that I don't really like. So I have to pick these things that might not be the best market, might not have the best monetization route, and then just work really hard because I like it. So I've enjoyed the D&D stuff.
Might not be the best market. Definitely aren't.
Yes.
Charisma wasn't. D&D's not.
But I'm happy to do it. I enjoy receiving back my drawings of characters and looking at them.
And for our makeup, potentially smaller pie chart in terms of industry, but we can take up a bigger slice of it. Mm-hmm. If we tried to compete with Hims, I think we just wouldn't do well because we wouldn't have any drive.
Yeah. Well, we're also not blue oceaning this one. There's well-established D&D.
Oh, stuff. I know. No, I'm not saying we're blue oceaning it. Just that the pie is smaller, but maybe we can be more successful than if we just picked the big money thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. I was thinking about people who write in, starting businesses, the struggles, and go, there is a level of perseverance required to be successful as an entrepreneur. And a lot of people just hit that first road bump and get discouraged and quit, and then just end up working a job they don't like because at least it's certain. It doesn't have that uncertainty.
Yeah, unfortunately, now I have a lot of friends that have been in this space, and they're all capable they've all developed a skill of, how do I set my own schedule? What are my goals for today? How do I know if I've done enough or not? They've developed these meta skills that enable you to succeed in entrepreneurship, and none of them are taught in school, which is the bummer. So you enter into it conditioned to get a rubric that is graded, and they tell you exactly what's on it, and the page limit, the spaces, the whatever, and it's the opposite of the meta skills that you need to succeed in entrepreneurship, which is what. It's not like it's hard for people. It's hard for people who graduated the American school system to do. But that doesn't have to be the case. You could easily train kids to have these skills and not freak out, struggle, and quit.
For sure.
But that's just not how it goes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things people have to learn. And it's definitely was something I had to learn and overcome was, how do I know that I have had a good, productive day when I'm an entrepreneur? Because I know how to do it in school, you do your homework. I even know how to do it at work. You generally get given a deadline for, you have to do this in a week. And you go, okay, well, I have 5 days. Did I do about 20% of it today? And then as an entrepreneur, you have about 1 billion things you could do to grow this business. No idea what will work. And you could, in theory, work 18 hours today and then just go to bed. So I don't want to do that. How do I know when I can check the box on today was a good day work-wise? And I think that that's something that stresses a lot of people out, is no one is going to tell you that. You have to decide that for yourself. And some people can't do it. Some people burn themselves out trying to do it. And some people set the bar too low and, do stupid stuff like trying to figure out their brand logo and business
logos. Yeah.
All right. Totally unrelated. I don't know if you heard about this. There was a shooting in Uvalde. So the Dallas School District announced Monday that it will require middle school and high school students to carry clear or mesh backpacks to class, joining other Texas districts in implementing new security measures following the Uvalde school massacre. So they're doing other things, but that's one of the ways in which Texas is trying to minimize the amount of gun deaths in school.
That's so...
Clear backpacks.
Okay. So you can concealed carry, but you have to wear a clear backpack in school. So that's how we make it a safe zone. I don't know. There seems to be...
I thought this was strange. I mean, the shooting occurred in an elementary school, first of all.
This is a 17-year-old who didn't go there.
Yeah. So the shooting that you're trying to make sorry, not that you're trying to make, the catalyst for this rule that only occurs in middle schools and high schools was caused by someone with a gun that wouldn't fit in a backpack going into a school that was an elementary school that they didn't attend, that they wouldn't have to follow the dress code for, and then doing a horrific shooting. So this clearly isn't going to prevent a copycat of Uvalde. It's for a different set of circumstances where a gun that fits in a backpack, someone that walks into their own school, like I appreciate that they're trying to limit school shootings, but that's an oddity to me. And then the second thing I thought was, what about the guy that plays saxophone in the band? Like, what? There's other people walking into school every day without clear cases that are larger. Every athlete, your lacrosse equipment, you just have a non-clear bag that's big enough for a lacrosse stick. So yeah, I appreciate the attempt. This isn't a good way to do it, and I don't know if it's because people are genuinely trying but just aren't really thinking about it, or if there's some cynical thing where it's like a show of, oh, we're doing stuff, but knowing that this isn't going to work, but it's just about like appeasing the public.
Yeah, I haven't thought deeply about it because I just heard it from you, but the sense that I have in listening is I wish you'd done nothing at all, because this is the uselessness of this mandate makes me think that you're corrupt in the way that you're approaching.
Yeah, corrupt, you're confused, right?
Well, like
one of the two.
Like you're trying to check the box for we tried, without, like, I'd rather you just not try. I truly prefer you just say, this is a fact of life. This is what happens in a nation where you've got this many guns and this many mentally ill people.
Or if you're not being cynical, I think there's a sense of, if you think you've tried and you check the box, you'll move on. So it's like, please don't move on in this
until
way.
You try.
Please don't check the box this way. Like, keep the backpacks opaque, and let's find a different way to check the box that maybe let's study every school shooting that's happened in the last 10 years and figure out the solution that would actually help the most.
Not saying they should do this, but if they told me, hey, we're going to get, ex-Ranger guards in every school, I'd go, wow, that's extreme and that's maybe a lot of money, but I wouldn't go, that's likely to be ineffective.
No, one school that I thought was interesting, because I was just looking into it briefly, one policy, pretty simple, they lock every classroom door once the bell rings, but two, every classroom has like a bulletproof bunkery thing. It's not a bunker, but it's just a giant metal box with windows, basically. So alarm goes off, there's a shooting announced, everybody just piles into there, and then unless the guy has bullets that can pierce through the metal, basically, and it's obviously a special type of bulletproof metal, you can just hang out in there for 8 hours. Yeah. So even if the cops take 3 hours to figure it out, you're safe. And it's like, you know what? That seems like it would have worked for Uvalde. Like, I don't know every gun case, but at least if you tell me you're doing that, I go, maybe this is expensive, unnecessary. Maybe there's smarter ways to do it, cheaper ways to do it. But this seems like it would work. This seems thoughtful, at least.
Yeah, I do. I haven't thought deeply about this issue. I need to see the numbers and the likelihood that this happens and all of that stuff. But it makes the Democrat left-leaning point that, like, you guys are willing to do everything, all this crazy shit that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, all these crazy harebrained ideas, fucking anything other than limiting access to these guns at a higher degree, making them harder to get. Or now it's here. What could I imagine that would work? And these are based on things that I've heard through the grapevine and am coming up with on the spot. So I'm not the best source for this, but serious penalties to any person whose gun gets taken by anyone else. Don't know if that already exists but like the type of draconian penalty that would make every single person get a lockbox, like with their crypto.
Well, I could be wrong. One of the shootings recently, it was a parent or grandparent signed off on somebody because they were either 17 or they had been flagged for mental health issues in the past, so they needed someone to sign off on it. And if you sign off on somebody and then they commit an atrocity with the gun, I think you should be held responsible for that. And I think that would have stopped that particular shooting, because I think if you know that somebody has mental health issues and you know that they have threatened violence to themselves or other people, and then they go, hey, will you sign off on this? Like, people won't even guarantee leases for their kids because they don't want the financial responsibility of having to pay a year's worth of rent. If there was a real penalty for that, I think people would have to truly trust their kids and understand at a deep level that they were going to be responsible gun owners, because they wouldn't put their risk their own prison time.
Yeah. I'm thinking the people that do this obviously are not raising great kids, which means they're probably not great parents, which means they're probably not making great decisions. But it seems like other countries, there's a couple places you can stop school shootings. One, you can have a super happy country where nobody kills anybody. Nobody's figured that out yet. Two, you can limit access to weapons that can easily destroy people. That seems to be what most other countries have done. Cat might be out of the bag into that one.
Yeah. I was going to say,
totally.
I actually used to think when I was younger, I was like, oh, that's what we should do. We should do the Australia. I think it is logistically impossible. I actually think you couldn't do it. There's too many guns out there. There's too many illegal gun owners who wouldn't give their guns back. Like it seems...
Or also culturally.
There would need to be a cultural shift. That's what I was just going to say. There would need to be a big cultural shift before the U.S. could possibly do that.
And that one is wildly effective. When you look at the difference between the U.S. and the countries that have gun violence and the countries that don't, is you can't do school stabbings in the same way that you can do school shootings. It's just not practical. So you can limit it. It seems like at the moment where someone has decided to take a automatic weapon into a undefended, and you don't, or you could arm the students or teachers, which I think is an absurd idea.
Yeah,
it's very difficult to stop that. As I guess when you have weapons and bullets and the doors are locked, I don't know how locks work, but I'm pretty sure
Well, the lock buys you time to get in the bunker. Didn't you hear about the bunker? Is the safety? It's the bulletproof bunker.
We'll see how it goes, man. Maybe we'll start hearing about these school shootings where a guy walks in loaded to the gills with ammo and guns and gets nobody because they're in their bunkers. I would be surprised if that's the case. Seems likely to cost a lot of money and save very few, if any, lives.
But if I were a parent, I would want that. Like, hey, you pay local taxes. Do you want that to go to bunkers for your kids? Probably. What else is it going to go to? I have to deal with a couple more potholes because the roads don't get paved.
That's such a dystopian nightmare. Yeah, it's not good solutions.
I understand why parents would want to pay exorbitant amounts for their kids' safety. If I were in a random suburb that hadn't had a shooting yet, and they were like, do you want to do the bunker thing and we're going to take the taxes out of something you care less about? I'd be like, yes, absolutely. And if they didn't, I'd probably be one of those parents who had a bulletproof coat or backpack for their kid, even though who knows how effective those are. Like, I see why this would be terrifying as a parent, because even though you can look at it and go, well, heart disease kills more people. It's like, yeah, when you have a kid, I think this is the terror goes beyond the
rationality,
the odds. You just don't want to play the odds. You're like, no, it's a very small chance it's your kid. It's like, yeah, that's not comforting to me as a parent.
Got it. Yeah.
So yeah, clear backpacks, the solution that will save us all. The last thing is I bought Sam Harris's Waking Up app.
Okay.
And there's meditations and things like that, but one of them had a theme that I liked that I wanted to share. The other day I shared that
Tim Ferriss
thing, and I had a couple people that I know that listen to the podcast text me and say it was really helpful. So I thought I would share another one that I found helpful, which is consider how much energy you put towards the project of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. And I thought that's an interesting way to phrase that, because he's phrasing it like it is optional, like it's a choice to try to minimize the amount of pain you experience and try to seek wealth, relationships, whatever it is, luxury goods to try to be happy. Because the mental model we normally get taught in psychology is that that's hardwired into us. That's pain and pleasure, carrot stick. That's how you get people to do things, because they are wired to run from pain and seek pleasure. And Sam Harris's point, in his opinion, at least, through the practice of meditation, you can make that more optional and instead become okay not getting as much pleasure and okay experiencing some pain. And he says, ultimately, because you will fail at what you pursue and you will have pain forced upon you, this is a better strategy for you. And I thought that was interesting, because it does put, like Tony Robbins' thing of pain, pleasure, and motivating people. There's a lot of psychological models based on this not being optional. So I just thought it was interesting for Sam to highlight, yeah, you can just try to get more comfortable with things not working out and bounce back and be one of those people who says, everything happens for a reason, and really mean it. And that's, in his mind, easier than going to great lengths to pursue all your pleasures and minimize all your pains.
Yes, I think to the people to whom he's speaking with smartphones and like they've already got like the 99% of the things that are going to make a human that a human needs from the outside world in order to like relax that I need more thing.
I'd actually push back on that a little bit, because one of the big things that was formative for me in my early 20s was going to poor countries and seeing children in what I would consider very bad situations, playing sports barefoot on concrete, like just you look at them and be like, oh, this is a really bad situation. I should feel bad for this kid. And the kids were happy. It seemed very happy. And that led me down a little rabbit hole of how a lot of the people I was working with in Wall Street were more miserable than the people, not just who were middle class in the US, but who were impoverished in other countries, but just had a different set of expectations for what life would hold. And so they didn't feel like life had dealt them a bad hand. It had just dealt them the hand that you get. So I don't think it's just iPhone people. I actually think there's a lot of people who have mastered this in other countries.
Well, sorry, that's why I think it's useful to the iPhone people. It's like you already have the little soccer ball in the net. You know what I mean? Like if that, like you have it. It's.
But I'm saying this mindset is also helpful to the kid that grew up in a slum where life is very scary and violent and food is not abundant. That they also benefit, but they almost have this. They're better at this mindset organically, almost. At least from what I've seen, just traveling around to other countries.
Yeah, I guess there's fundamental question is like, you kind of, this is to break it down a bit too analytically, which is not, I don't think his intent, but I can put units of effort towards changing my perception, or I can put units of effort towards changing my circumstances. At some level, if you've got no food, like those units of effort might be best spent for additional like positive experience be put towards that.
I think he would agree.
Yes.
It's not about units of effort. It's about which is more valuable. And I think he's saying the mindset is always more valuable. Like you can still put the effort not into strengthening the mindset, but getting food if you don't have food. But if you have the mindset, it's going to help you tremendously.
Sure. Yeah. Across.
Yeah. And so it's not about saying, oh, I'm not going to put time into getting food. I'm going to put time into cultivating this. But he's just saying, if you have this mindset, you're almost always better off than if you're trying to change your circumstances. That's his hypothesis.
Yeah. I think that I encounter that in myself often. There's an implicit desire with any business, anything, any whatever to grow, to like have more. And I feel, I don't blame them, but like friends will ask, what are you going to do? What's your growth plan? As particularly as regards the business. And on the one hand, it is fun to grow things, but on the other, I have to remind myself, like, if I need this to grow in order to be happy, I'm deeply fucked up. Because like, if what I have isn't enough, there is never an enough point. And then, you want to be happy in the now and capable of enjoying the process of growth and the limitations on that and the setbacks and all that kind of stuff is, I think, ideal. But I've recently been trying to do what he said without having listened to that particular meditation, which is just way too much effort going into getting more stuff, more things in order to make me happy, and not enough going into I've got everything. Yeah. I've got it.
Yeah. And for me, I actually don't spend a lot of time thinking about more, but I do spend tremendous amounts of mental energy thinking about
preserving.
What if something bad happens?
Yeah.
Like what if, any number of things, something with the business, something with my health, something with my relationship. Like I'm not out in the world trying to get more, but internally there's a lot of mental energy going into make sure there's no pain emotionally from loss or suffering. And I think that I would just be better, happier, more fulfilled to release that and instead go, something bad will happen. You can't prevent every single bad thing from happening. And spending too much time preventing any single bad thing from happening is actually making you worse off emotionally than just being present. Enjoying that nothing has gone bad yet
and
getting blindsided by the bad thing and going, okay, now I have to react. And I've done a really good job of trying to fortify and protect, but at the cost of a lot of attention. A lot of mental exercise goes into what could go wrong, this and that. And so, to me, that's where it hit me. It's like, it's not so much about not trying to grow, but it's about releasing that protective mental exercise and all the energy that goes into it daily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting that you use the word blindsided, because I think that's one of the things that our minds can do is convince us that if I don't prepare, I will be blindsided. It's like, well, there's of course, like, I'm not going to be blindsided if my business doesn't work, or like I've thought about those things. It's not going to be like a car T-boning me.
Oh no, but
it's going to be.
Mine's way past that, dude. I just froze sperm just in case something goes wrong. Again, in case you get in a horrible testicle-related accident.
That's what I'm saying. None of the things that you mentioned will blindside you. You might not feel as emotionally prepared as you'd like to be, but they will not be.
I've thought of them, you're saying.
You could not be blindsided by the things that you've said, given how much attention you've already put there, and to go, okay, that was a healthy amount of attention to put towards pain mitigation in the future. I'm going to stop now.
Yeah, well, that's kind of where I'm going. So for me, different people in different stages of the life require different areas for growth. And I think for a period of time, my area of growth was, hey, you need skills. You went to business school and didn't learn anything useful. You are starting a business and you have no idea what to do. Go learn and focus on growing in that, you know what I mean? Like really tactical skill-wise way. And other times it was, hey, you're emaciated and your roommates are making fun of you because they can see your ribs. You have to learn
emaciated.
Dude, I was called Skeletor. I was called Skeletor.
Some of the words you've used today: blindsided, emaciated. Yeah, you were 180 pounds.
You can see all my ribs, dude.
Okay.
But what I'm realizing is like that makes sense for a period of time in your life to focus on changing the external, conquering the world, building an empire, getting physically fit. And the new frontier, which is totally foreign, is being present and not trying to improve the future or protect against downside in the future.
Yeah. I think I agree.
Yeah, so it was a good quote. And I actually think a lot of people would benefit from that, even if they didn't go through that conquer the world stage, because I see a lot of people who are anxious or depressed whose circumstances are circumstances that someone else in a different period of time or a different culture could find themselves happy in. And so at that point, I think it comes down to your internal world. Cool.
Is that it for?
That's it.
Very good. What, Justin?
Nice. I got one question for us.
All right.
So, what drives one to become antisocial?
What drives one?
Yes.
Is this personal?
Subconsciously?
Is this a personal attack?
I think it's subconscious, right? That must be the question. I think most people don't consciously choose to be antisocial. So what drives someone to subconsciously be antisocial?
I actually don't know. I could give you some speculation because I don't know. I'm not like this, and the people that I know aren't really.
I feel like there's an obvious. I feel like the obvious answer is
pain around
fear.
Socialization, and
it's fear. It's fear that if they are social, people will reject them, and that the pain of being rejected in their mind is higher than the pain of loneliness. So they'll voluntarily give themselves the pain of loneliness over and over to avoid risking the pain of rejection.
Yeah. And I would contrast that with your run-of-the-mill introversion, which is like, I like to be alone. You know, you said antisocial, which is someone who is anti that aspect of life. That makes sense.
I mean, I think introverts can have tons of friends. I don't think that introversion is a curse or a social death sentence or anything like that. Like, I think people confuse introversion with other things. But yeah, that was a big thing for me, at least socially, was just recognizing that when I mentally reduced the pain of rejection down substantially from this is going to be a black mark on me because I'm in a school that's small, that has reputations and all this stuff, to I'm in college, now I'm in New York, now there isn't there's like no downside to someone rejecting your friendship or rejecting you romantically. That was one of the most helpful mindset shifts for me in terms of getting comfortable, going out and being social, taking social risks, being playful, goofy, funny, letting people judge me. That was like a core breakthrough that I think a lot of people would benefit from. Just recognizing rejection really doesn't have to cause any pain.
And if it does, you can get over it pretty quick.
Yeah, it's self-inflicted. There's not often a actual tribal, kicked out of the society penalty the way that people feel internally, like it would be a social death sentence.
Cool.
So yeah, I think fear causes people to be antisocial.
Nice. Let's go to Patreon.
Let's do it. What do we got?
We're going to talk about hairstyle tips. A lot of requests for Hank Moody. So we're going to respond to somebody about that. And then we're going to talk about deconstructing a skill like Tim Ferriss.
Great.
I've thought in depth about Hank Moody, so I have a good answer for you.
So if you guys want to see the rest of these questions and more, please hop over to Patreon. It's what keeps us going. It is the primary form of income for this podcast and enables us to continue. So yeah, if you like what we're doing here and want more or want any of it, please join our Patreon. Any dollar amount gets you access to everything that we've done over there. So see the rest of you there. Thanks, guys. Peace.